What's up guys, welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/MaliciousCompliance. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story's called, Kicking an 80-year-old Widow Off of Her Small Farm Unless She Complies with Your Unrealistic Repair Demands. Okay. Not my malicious compliance, but that's of a small town. Keep in mind, I was around 14 or 15 at the time, so the political details are from the adults recanting this story. We lived near this nice lady, but was 2 farms over. Backstory. Our small Midwestern town had unfortunately elected a new mayor who seemed alright, but was a big city ideal tyrant. Once in the office, he revealed his true colors, forcing out many who tried to preserve our way of life. As a town, we were growing, adding more housing because people were moving in from a big city 50 miles away. They loved our low taxes and low property costs just 50 miles down the highway from the city, which had a 3 to 5 times higher tax rates and property value. A home which cost $60,000 here could be worth $200,000 to $250,000 in the city, depending on the location. Immediately, they implemented a bunch of policies and cut services that the city used to provide. The scene. Our city had new houses going up around her small farm, with new house literally on the ground she used to own, taken by the city when they put in roads to allow for new housing and a school football field. Her home was down to 2 small pastures, including a shelter for the animals, a barn, and her house with a detached garage. A few sheep and some miniature horses occupied the pastures, keeping the grass down. One homecoming weekend, as fireworks went off, the fence got knocked down and her animals got out. Months later, this lady inquired about apartments at the local Presbyterian complex for the elderly. The office worker inquired about her current residence when she broke, spilling the beans. Outraged, he told members of the church, and via the small town grapevine, it spread like wildfire. The demands. The city determined her fencing was inadequate and needed replacing. However, the new regulations would not allow for wire panel fencing. She would have to comply with wrought iron or wood fencing that meets code. Weeds growing up near the fence was a code violation, and the city would take care of it, charging her for the labor. The shelter didn't meet code and was to be torn down, missing shingles and flaking paint on the barn. She had to replace the roof and paint the barn. Replacing any trusses or sideboards showing rot, no door on the barn meant she had to put a door on it as well. New construction requiring permit. House had bad shingles and siding. Siding was from the early 1900s and probably had lead paint, so she had to replace it. Detached garage had foundation issues and needed to be torn down, or a new attached garage with a foundation built. She had 2 weeks left of 30 days notice to comply. Sorry for the long filler, now the compliance. The next week, the pastors and priests told their congregation of this woman's plight, and a plan was formed. 2 lawyers from the Baptist and Catholic churches filed paperwork for the permits and something to buy us more time. Local businesses and donators cover the cost of materials. Some contractors, construction workers, landscapers, and electricians even donated labor. Just 3 weeks later, hordes of volunteers arrived to clean, install fence, roof, side, install an automatic door for the barn, build a new shelter for the animals to be in, and build an attached garage. A crew had already torn the old garage down, while the cement company poured her a new foundation. All this was accomplished over 1 weekend. Nuns handed out food and drinks donated by the local grocery, while priests and pastors worked hand in hand with the congregation. My father told me that morning we would be transporting and keeping her animals for her while the construction was going on. We also helped with fencing. A few things needed polishing over the coming weeks, but nonetheless, our small town told the mayor and council where to stick their policies. Alright, that was one incredibly wholesome story. We gotta appreciate people coming together to get stuff like that done, because who knows how much that would cost to get it done in such a short amount of time. That mayor and council, oh my god, they suck. This story's called, Girlfriend Wants Our Dates to Be Appointment Only. I've been dating this girl for some time now, and our time together on weekdays are rather spontaneous and casual. After work, I'd call her to find out where she is and whether she had time for me. Then I'd go to her to spend time fooling around at a rental apartment, go for dinner together, grocery shopping, etc. There were never any complaints about this from her, until one day when we got into an argument about an unrelated matter. She accuses me of having no respect for her and her time, because I always call her at the last minute and expect her to make time for me. She declares that I'm causing her a lot of inconveniences because she can never make any plans on weekday evenings since she doesn't know if I have time for her on any given weekday. Going forward, she's going to reject all plans that weren't made at least 24 hours in advance. She's a busy girl after all. I was shocked. This was never my intention. The nature of my work means that I have to do an unknown amount of overtime every day. What I've been doing is to call her at 6 p.m. when she gets off work to give her an estimate of when I will finish and when I can reach wherever she is. I can only get a reliable estimate at around 5 p.m. when my bosses leave for home. What this means is that I have to give her a 24-hour heads up. I can never make any weekday commitments. So I appeal to her with the argument that she doesn't have to keep her weekday evenings free for me. She can go ahead and make her own plans and just turn me down if she already has something scheduled. She rejects that argument because reasons. Now, my girlfriend is a foreigner in my country on a work visa. She has no family and few friends here. As a result, she gets lonely and wants to spend as much time together as possible. Under my previous method of meeting her spontaneously, I can be with her 4 weekdays every week on average. If I'm required to give her a 24-hour advance notice, I can meet her nil weekdays every week. So that's exactly what I did. The day after, I made no plans with her. I let her know when I'm off work, then told her I'm going home. I didn't make plans with her for the next day either. I could tell she's angry because she's giving very curt replies to my attempts at small talk. But I don't care. I went straight home and gamed for the first time in 6 months. It was glorious. I used to be a hardcore gamer, gaming at least 2 hours to 18 hours every day, but had to give it up because she required a lot of attention. This went on for a few days, until Saturday finally arrives. I paid for my act of defiance dearly that weekend, but she rescinded the stupid rule, and we were back to how we were before by the following week. Okay, I'm gonna throw in my 2 cents. Your girlfriend doesn't seem to be the most understanding person. Like, I get she realized that the rule was unreasonable, but there's the whole thing of, oh, I haven't gamed in 6 months because my girlfriend requires a lot of attention. That's not good. If your relationship is getting in the way of you doing things that you enjoy, that's not a very good one in my book. I mean, I don't know how you guys operate or anything like that, so this is just off the information provided. But I can't help but feeling that's kind of slightly toxic at least, because this is essentially telling us that he has absolutely no time to himself because his girlfriend is so attention craving. But that's just a theory. I'm not doing it. This story's called, I Want to Cancel All of My Services. Okay, I had worked at a telecommunications store for quite a few years, and as someone who has worked in all sorts of retail, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that telco has the worst customers. But every now and then, you get back at the worst customers by giving them exactly what they want. We had a local small business owner that had several services with us. Mobile phones, broadband, landlines, the works. He thought that since he had a lot of services, it meant that he could do what he wanted, and the rules did not apply to him. This included getting behind on his bills, complaining about late fees, and absolutely losing it if any services were suspended, restricted. Bear in mind that this only happens after 3 months of overdue bills. If any of these were to happen, he would stomp in, yell, and carry on. Now, in a lot of telco stores, we are just that, stores. We can only do very little when it comes to accounts, especially business accounts. I know it's ridiculous, and if we had the capabilities to do even a few account things in store, it would have made so many people's lives easier. So we would process a payment and then call up the accounts department to reinstate the services or unrestrict them. One week in particular, he came in all smiles and shaking hands. He didn't even mind waiting in line for the people in before him to be served. Normally, he would storm up to any consultant, even if they were with customers already being served. I had the luck of being the first one free to serve him. He goes on a long speech about how he is expanding his business and he needs several new phones for the new staff he's hiring. I congratulate him and go about the process of getting them activated. We had a problem early on. Surprise, surprise, he has overdue bills, and the system cannot apply new services to an account that is overdue. This does not mean a bill has been issued. It means it is past its due date. He is livid, saying he needs those services. I get on the phone with the accounts team and they are willing to waive the default wait time of 3 business days after an account is settled before applying new services. He wasn't having a bar of it and said he wants the services and will not be paying a cent today. I inform him that it simply cannot be done, literally impossible in our system to do it. He starts yelling, saying that he wants to cancel his services and take them elsewhere. I tell him that is not something we can do in store, and he will need to contact the business accounts department, and they can assist him in moving his services elsewhere. He stomps off, and I thought this would be the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. The very next day, as soon as the store opens, he is there waiting, red-faced and on a warpath. Being the most senior person during the shift, I dealt with him. He yells about being on the phone for ages, being told they advise not to cancel but to go to another telco and port to services. I'm guessing they didn't explain it too well, as porting means to transfer your services to another provider, keeping the same numbers and having minimal, if any, interruption of service. I explained to him very plainly about what porting meant, and that all he needed to do was go to another carrier, sign up his services, give them the numbers he once brought across, and once they do, we automatically cancel his services on our end once the other provider takes ownership. Simple, right? Wrong. He refused to leave the store until his services were canceled. Time for my malicious compliance. While it wasn't something we could do in store, we had manual paperwork for lots of things in case of systems going down, compatibility issues, etc. So I go through our internal server to find manual paperwork for account service cancellations and print it off, filling everything out on it, ready to go. I request 2 forms of ID, which I need to photocopy, that he needs to be attached to the paperwork and get him to sign, informing him in no uncertain terms that if he goes ahead with this, his services will be deactivated within 2 business days and will no longer function. He was fine with this, saying that once that happened, he would go elsewhere. He signed it, and I went about contacting accounts. Faxing the paperwork through, and they processed it all and forwarded me the confirmation for our in-store records. 2 days later, I once again opened the store and he's there waiting, red-faced, and the second he sees me, he starts screaming at me that none of his services are working and his company cannot get anything done. No phones, no internet, etc. And that he's going to sue us for lost income and everything else. I go out the back and pull out the paperwork, going over it with him, going over what I told him the other day. He no longer has any services with us. They are now canceled, and he will be unable to sign up any new services or potentially reactivate any services until his overdue account is paid. I take him to a computer and try to access his account, showing him it no longer exists on our end and there is literally nothing I can do. He gets up angry but defeated and leaves yelling, "We have now lost a big customer. Hadn't we already?" Alright, this was a good one. I like this one. That guy is an idiot. Alright, obviously he shouldn't be running a business if he doesn't understand what— oh yes, nothing will work. There is absolutely nothing that will work if you cancel your services. Okay, that sounds good. And then you come back mad because nothing works? What? This story's called Trashy Malicious Compliance. When I was first starting out as a teacher, I started at a large school in a really rural area. Our school was in the middle of 5 decent-sized towns, and the kids were bussed in from all over those areas. We had a really hard time hiring people because no one wanted to live in the middle of nowhere, and no one really wanted to make a long drive either. Teachers always tried to take up the slack whenever a department was lacking. I've served lunches to students and been an art teacher. This particular time, I was helping out the custodian, vacuuming offices, taking out the trash, etc. This was my least favorite job because I'm not built for manual labor. I'm more of a popcorn and Netflix kind of guy. We said goodbye to a great principal, and in came a new guy, the jerk. He wanted to revolutionize our school by running every department like he owned it. He took on a lot of extra stuff that was unnecessary, just so he could take it away from the teachers. After a year of him being there, I was still scheduling teacher vacations as a point of contact, until he realized it and came into the book room, slammed his hand down on my table and said, "You are never to do another task outside your job description." He made me read the job description in front of the other teachers, so I complied. At night, when the custodian came in, I let him do his normal work. When it came to my half, I said, "Your stuff is all done, go ahead and go home." After a week of this, the principal stopped by to ask me to remind the janitor to vacuum because the carpet was getting gross and his trash is piling up. The next week, I did the same thing. I sent the janitor home whenever his part was done. Once again, he came storming in. "Have you been telling the custodian to vacuum my room and take out the trash?" I walked over to my desk, grabbed the job description, and started reading it without saying a word. "I'm so sorry, sir. I don't see that line in my job description." He stormed off. I found out that he was bringing me before the deacons. It's like a school board, but is made up of a bunch of church members for private schools. I showed them the job description and told them how the problems came about. Pretty soon, none of the other teachers could hold it in either, and spoke up about the problems. The board said that they were only going to suspend me for 2 days due to blatancy of insubordination. Another teacher stood up and said that if I was suspended, that no teacher would do extra side work to keep the school going when we were having troubles hiring people. They agreed to that. 2 months later, the board called us all back and offered us raises and contracts to fulfill our former duties. During those 2 months, 41 activities or events had to be canceled due to lack of teacher involvement. The principal decided to move on to another school because he didn't want to work somewhere where teachers ran the school. I've said it before and I will say it again. I've only ever had magnificent teachers, and I've genuinely felt love for some of them because they treat you like family. They genuinely at least act like they care, in my experience. And yes, in a lot of smaller schools, teachers have multiple roles, like math teacher, gym teacher, football coach, basketball coach. Literally, that was one of my teachers. So this guy, good on you for being a good guy, I guess. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.